너에게 새로운 영감을 줄 거야.
이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸?
Coming up on Arirang News, President Yoon is soon to announce key reform initiatives on 5 sectors this week. With the pension roadmap at the center, the pension reform will be the first one to come since 2007. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un oversaw a test of so-called suicide drones over the weekend and stressed the importance of developing more of them in a bid to prepare for war. Israel and Hezbollah exchanged heavy fire on Sunday, raising fears of an all-out war in the region. We take a look at where this tension is headed. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. We begin with a pension reform plan that President Yoon is set to announce later this week as he addresses the nation with regard to his reform initiatives of 5 key sectors. Our top office correspondent Oh Soo-young explains.
President Yoon Suk-yeol will push for a new plan to reform the public pension scheme as South Korea's rapidly aging society faces the possible depletion of pension funds within just 30 years. According to various presidential officials over the weekend, Yoon will address the nation this week to explain the status of his 5 key reforms to improve the national pension, healthcare system, education, labour conditions and the birth rate. In his briefing, Yoon will mainly set the tone for the government's soon-to-be-announced roadmap for pension reform, the first since 2007. One official told Arirang News that Yoon feels he must personally address the issue, recognising that the national pension affects every citizen, particularly the younger and future generations.
The current structure allows people to receive more than they've paid over the years, causing a deficit. This puts a burden on future generations who have to cover the difference. When the pension system was first introduced, it was designed generously to encourage people to join. It was expected the premium rates would gradually increase and the income replacement rate would decrease over time. However, after the 1997 Asian financial crisis and even during the 2007 pension reform, there were proposals to increase the premium, but they weren't implemented.
South Korea having the world's lowest birth rate and a declining population means fewer young adults will have to support the disproportionately large number of pensioners. As experts predict, the current pension funds will run out by 2055. Those born after 1990 would not receive any payouts upon retiring at age 65, despite their decades-long contributions. Previous discussions in Parliament have focused on parametric measures, such as adjusting the insurance premium rate, how much you pay, and how much of your income can be replaced by your pension payout, the so-called income replacement rate. To secure fiscal sustainability and generational equity, the government is likely to increase the premium rate from the current 9% to 13%, which the ruling and opposition parties agreed on earlier this year. However, the new plan is expected to also introduce structural changes by proposing a slower rate of increase for younger people to meet the 13% target, while the older generation would be subject to steeper increments. Other measures being mulled are automatically adjusting premium rates and income replacement levels based on economic and demographic conditions, as well as enhancing benefits for military personnel and new mothers.
The truth is, no other country has experienced a birth rate as low as South Korea's, so we need to take more drastic and unprecedented measures to ensure sustainability, intergenerational equity and old age income security. Otherwise, we'll see a divide between those who benefit and those who don't, and the system won't be sustainable.
Once the government proposal is submitted to the National Assembly, partisan discussions and social discourse are expected to follow as reform measures require changes to the National Pension Act. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
President Yoon Suk-yeol is set to host New Zealand's Prime Minister Christopher Luxon next week. The top office announced on Monday that Luxon will be in South Korea for an official visit from Wednesday to Thursday. It also added that the two will meet and discuss ways to enhance practical bilateral ties, as well as cooperation on the regional and international stage. South Korea and New Zealand are both part of NATO's Indo-Pacific Four Partners, along with Japan and Australia. The two leaders last met at the IP4 summit during the last NATO summit in Washington, D.C. A list of measures aimed at easing the burden of holiday-related expenses has been unveiled ahead of this year's Chuseok celebration. Shin-Young with the details.
As part of efforts to support people's livelihoods ahead of the Korean Thanksgiving holiday, Chuseok, 3 weeks from now, South Korea will supply a record amount of Chuseok-related goods as well as other incentives. This plan was discussed during a meeting of senior officials from the government, the presidential office, and the ruling People Power Party on Sunday.
We need to focus more on the rising prices of vegetables, fruits, livestock, and seafood, as these are the areas where people feel the impact the most.
170,000 tons of the 20 most high-demand Chuseok items, including cabbage and apples, will be supplied to markets, the largest amount ever for Chuseok holiday. The government and the PPP also agreed to waive highway tolls and offer discounts of up to 40% for KTX and SRT train tickets for travelers from the provinces to the capital area during the Chuseok holiday. South Korea plans to provide 40 trillion Korean won, which is around $30 billion in financial support to small and medium-sized companies as well as small business owners to ease financial pressure, including lowering interest rates for loans. The government has also decided to purchase 50,000 tons of surplus rice from last year from farmers. Additional measures to stabilize falling rice prices will be announced before the middle of September. The PPP also made a request to the government to review designating this year's Armed Forces Day, which is October 1st, as a temporary holiday to honor active military personnel. The government will review factors including stirring up military morale, boosting consumer spending, and the impact on businesses before making a decision. Shin-Young, Arirang News.
Korea's inflation is set to slow to the lower 2% range in September. This is according to the Bank of Korea on this Monday. Agriculture prices are expected to ease amid relatively favorable weather conditions. By sector, core products will see prices retreating to the upper 1% range, while core services, with the exception of housing, are expected to hover at the mid-2% range. Meanwhile, the number of people aged 60 and older in employment has hit a fresh high here in Korea. This is according to the Ministry of SMEs and Startups on Monday. Almost 6.4 million people in this age group were in employment on average monthly between January and July this year, accounting for over 22% of the total workforce. This size is over 4 times the ratio seen 40 years ago. The number of startups founded by people in this age group between January and May this year also accounted for nearly 14% of the total, posting a new record. North Korea's Kim Jong-un oversaw a test show of suicide drones this past weekend. The drones revealed by the regime appear similar to those used by Russia. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung reports.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un supervised a performance test of so-called suicide drones on Saturday and called for the development of more to boost war readiness. According to state media on Monday, Kim oversaw the test of the new exploding drones, which are made to precisely destroy preset enemy targets on the ground and in the sea. Kim emphasized the need to develop different types of drones and improve combat capabilities for war operations. He also highlighted the importance of incorporating artificial intelligence technology when developing drones. Of the 2 drones revealed in the photographs, one resembles Russia's Lancet 3, which has had significant success in targeting Ukrainian forces. South Korea is looking into the possibility of Pyongyang receiving help from Moscow.
We are aware that Russia gave some drones to North Korea as gifts. We need to analyze various aspects, including whether North Korea made modifications to improve their performance.
One expert says the test could have been aimed at boasting that the regime is capable of producing and supplying drones to Russia.
Russia is currently very dependent on drones in the war against Ukraine. So if North Korea develops and now produces them, I believe it will be meaningful in the long term with regard to supplying weapons to Russia.
The expert also pointed out that the North's drones could be beneficial to the regime, as they are harder to detect and strike due to their small size and low-altitude flight maneuvers. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Staying on North Korea, the National Intelligence Service says the new missile launchers Pyongyang recently claimed to have developed could reach as far as the central part of the country. However, it raises doubts about whether the regime can actually meet its own weapons demand. Our Issue has more.
Regarding North Korea's recent claim that it's equipped itself with 250 new tactical ballistic missile launchers, South Korea's intelligence agency believes that the missiles, if launched, could reach as far as Chungcheongdo province, having a possible range of 110 kilometers. But as to whether Pyongyang can actually supply itself with the missiles, South Korea has its doubts. This is according to a National Intelligence Service report made to the National Assembly Intelligence Committee on Monday. The vice chairman of the committee, lawmakers Lee Sung-kwon and Park Sun-won, following their meeting with the NIS, told reporters that there are concerns about the launcher's potential frontline placement and operation, and that there is pressure to prepare for defense. But the NIS also believes that the regime's ongoing supply of weapons to Russia could make it difficult to meet its own demand for missiles. North Korean state media reported earlier this month that Pyongyang plans to deploy hundreds of new missile vehicles called transporter erector launchers to its border with South Korea. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, South Korea and the U.S. are staging joint live-fire air drills from Monday to Wednesday as part of the Ilji Freedom Shield exercise. The training is underway in waters off South Korea's western coast. It involves some 60 military planes, including South Korea's F-35A, F-15K, and KF-16 fighters, and U.S. A-10 attack aircraft. The drill is particularly focused on strengthening response capabilities against enemy provocations that occur simultaneously in the air and on the ground, such as cruise missile and long-range artillery launch attacks. President Yoon has called for South Korea and the United States to show strong deterrence against North Korea and continue their efforts to denuclearize the regime. This came on Monday as the South Korean leader met with U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee Chairman Jack Reed, who is currently visiting South Korea. Yoon's office said the president welcomed Reed and asked him to continue playing a crucial role in ramping up their global comprehensive strategic alliance. Yoon said as North Korea continues its provocations while rejecting dialogue, Seoul and Washington must maintain a robust combined defense posture, demonstrating strong deterrence and jointly pursuing the complete denuclearization of Pyongyang. Reed lauded Yoon for his courage and leadership that laid the groundwork for the Camp David trilateral cooperation framework between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo. He added that their scope of cooperation has expanded to countries such as Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the Philippines. Turning to the Middle East, where tensions remain high, Hezbollah launched a major rocket and drone attack targeting Israel over the weekend to retaliate for the killing of its leader, against which Israel carried out preemptive strikes. Our Yoon looks into where all of this is headed.
Amid fears in the international community of escalation into a wider war, Israel and the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah exchanged their most intense fire in months on Sunday. In the morning, air raid sirens rang throughout northern Israel as Hezbollah launched hundreds of rockets and drones in retaliation for Israel's killing of a top militant commander last month. Israel said it carried out a wave of preemptive strikes with 100 fighter jets to stop the attacks, and that they successfully took out at least 50% of the missiles that were planned to be launched into Israel and effectively repelled the subsequent attack. Hezbollah claims to have successfully launched over 300 missiles or drones at Israeli military sites.
So both sides are satisfied with the duel, so the escalation has stopped for the time being.
Sunday's attacks reportedly resulted in 3 deaths on Hezbollah's side and 1 on Israeli. Hezbollah asserted that this was only phase 1 of its attack on Israel, but confirmed no more attacks were currently planned. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned that this was not the end of the story. The United States was not involved in the strikes directly, but helped track incoming Hezbollah weapons. Based on this, the professor provided a deeper insight into what to expect in the Israel-Hamas war.
After the exchange of airstrike from both sides, United States announced the 2 nuclear power aircraft carrier, Abraham Lincoln and Theodore Roosevelt, will be on its duty in the Middle East.
According to the professor, this means that the U.S. will be there to protect the security of Israel, but also clearly signals that enough is enough, which will make it hard for Netanyahu to continue his war with Hamas, as he proclaimed. The U.S. position also complicates Iran's potential retaliation for the killing of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh, as any misstep could escalate into a direct U.S.-Iranian conflict, which Tehran wants to avoid but Israel might prefer. Meanwhile, Gaza's health ministry has reported that 71 Palestinians were killed in Israeli operations just preceding the attacks. While high-level talks in Cairo on a Gaza hostage and ceasefire deal ended without a final agreement, also on Sunday, lower-level talks are set to continue in the coming days. The death toll since the October 7th attacks has reached 40,405, with more than 93,000 Palestinians injured. Yoon, Arirang News.
Around 180 Koreans have allegedly entered Israel to attend a religious event, according to sources on Monday. This raises the number of those residing or present in the country to nearly 700. The South Korean government is said to have advised those residing in Israel, as well as those attending the religious event, to leave the country as soon as possible. There have been no reported casualties among any of the Korean nationals so far. The government added that it will continue to take necessary safety measures for Koreans abroad amid heightened tensions in the region. Elsewhere, an intense exchange of fire continues between Ukraine and Russia in both territories as Kyiv's incursion into Russia's Kursk region looks to enter its 4th week. An Sung-jin covers this conflict.
Russian troops raided across Ukraine on Monday, killing at least 3 people. This is according to local media, which reported that Ukrainian air forces spotted Russian drones flying over, which were soon followed by cruise and ballistic missiles. Air raid alerts were issued across the country. Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal stated that the Russians targeted around 15 energy facilities overnight, leading to an emergency blackout. The mayor of Kyiv said all electricity and water supplies were cut off due to these power outages. Russian authorities have yet to release a statement regarding the latest attack on Ukraine. This comes after Ukrainian drone strikes attacked the southwestern border city of Belgorod on Sunday. Russian officials say 5 Russian civilians were killed and 12 others injured, issuing a state of emergency in the Voronezh region. It's been nearly 3 weeks since the Ukrainian forces began operations in the Kursk region, and Kyiv says it's now using new high-tech drones capable of precision strikes against its enemies. However, the Russian Defense Ministry says its military has things under control and claims it has repelled Ukrainian offensives. Russian defense officials say nearly 40 Ukrainian drones and 8 U.S.-made HIMARS missiles were shot down by its air defense system, adding that the Ukrainian military has suffered significant losses. Moscow's defense ministry claims that some 1,900 Ukrainian soldiers were killed inside Russian territory. Meanwhile, Russian forces inside Ukraine continue its offensives on the eastern front, with Ukrainians in the Donetsk being evacuated. Ukrainian officials said the Russian airstrikes on a hotel in the region killed a British national and injured 2 journalists, all reportedly working for Reuters. The Associated Press noted that these airstrikes are the largest within the past few weeks. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
On the cultural front, an original musical based on Arirang, a traditional Korean folk song, has mesmerized people around the world. Chuseok delivers us the story.
The world has been captivated by the Korean musical Ari, the Spirit of Korea.
It reinterprets the story of Arirang, a 600-year-old Korean folk song originating from Jong-un County in Gangwon province. It tells the story of a carpenter Shin Ki-mok who leaves his hometown and family to sail to the capital city Hanyang to rebuild Gyeongbokgung Palace. Ari Arari was created by Jongsun-gun County Office as part of cultural events for the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. Over the past 7 years, it has gained popularity, being showcased at various festivals worldwide.
We created cultural content using Jeonsun, Arirang to preserve Jeonsun-gun County's unique identity, while adapting it to modern trends with universal themes like love, family, and home.
The musical was officially invited to one of the most prestigious arts and culture festivals in the United Kingdom, the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, from August 1st to 25th, alongside 3,800 other productions. Director Yoon Jong-un said that he focused more on music than on language, aiming for everyone to experience the performance through all 5 senses with the Korean essence.
We performed a total of 23 times, and the local response was incredibly enthusiastic. Even though most of the audience were foreigners, they laughed and enjoyed it together. And as they left the venue, many of them were humming the melody of Arirang.
Last year, Ari Arari won the Best Physical Theatre Award at the Adelaide Fringe Festival in Australia. Even a foreign tourist who first saw Ari Arari there later visited Jongsun-gun and then went to this year's Edinburgh Festival specifically to see the performance again and meet the actors, which moved them to tears. Yoon also expressed hope that Ari Arari would make Koreans living abroad feel even prouder of their heritage.
In the early 1900s, some Koreans were forcibly relocated to Central Asia or left the Korean peninsula. We call this path the Arirang Road. Just like the Silk Road, Koreans have spread worldwide. Back then, it was a path of suffering. But now, through our performance, we dream of turning it into a path of joy.
He hopes that people worldwide will visit Jongsun at least once to experience Ari Arari. Chuseok, Arirang News.
In Seoul, tropical nights have appeared again and showers passed throughout the hot weather during the day. With a heat wave warning issued in most parts of the country, the hot weather will continue tomorrow. Tropical nights will continue tonight around the Seoul metropolitan area and coastal regions. Easterly winds will strengthen and it will rain on the East Coast and Jeju Island between tomorrow morning and Wednesday morning. There will also be gusty winds and thunderstorms in places where it's rain or showers. Tomorrow, most areas will start off at least 23 degrees. Highs will rise up to 32 in Seoul, Daejeon, and Busan. Daegu, 33 degrees. Cold air will come down from the north by the weekend and temporarily ease the heat. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for today. Thank you for watching. Arirang News will be back at 9 a.m. Korea time.
There is no greater blessing than to have